It's really tough because they do a lot of time travel stuff, and when you do time travel, it's one of those weird sorts of things where you're like, well, how come they couldn't do this, or how come they could do this, and what exactly are the specific rules? So it's really, really tough to. It's really, really tough. For now, I'm gonna go with a 6 because is just going after one viewing. I'm gonna give it a 6,
Fair enough.
but we'll see how that goes so far. Because when I was watching it, I couldn't think of like anything massive as I was watching it. Maybe I just missed it, but I guess we'll see.
The fucking you open with like Hawkeye with his family doing shit. The first thing a couple people already pointed out is like, why is it daytime in America and in Africa? It's a bit it's weird. It's like there's fucking nitpicks. Like I mean yeah, but like it's not hard to film like a scene where it's nighttime with Hawkeye and his
Yeah,
family.
they could have done it.
that.
Well, they could have done it
Fuck.
indoors, and it would have
Yeah.
had the same effect where they disappear and everything.
They could have been shooting
it
in
might
the
have been even
barn or
better.
something. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, that is a mistake.
And that's mostly just whatever.
Well, have we considered the perspective of the movie if the world is flat? Would it still be like in Africa and in the US?
You know what? You fucking nailed it. I think this is gonna be the movie to reinvigorate the Flat Earth Society.
I wonder if Guardians 3 is going to be set before Endgame or after it.
Oh yeah, I didn't think of that.
Oh, well, here's the thing. If they have another Guardians, we'll get more Thor.
Oh god, yeah. I'm so
And
ready for that.
I really want that so much. I really, really want to see that.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of like way to sort of jump to next. So they come up with a time travel idea. Fucking hell, yeah. So Tony figures it out after like 3 tries or whatever.
Like really fucking quickly.
And again, people have been talking about how, yeah, don't you get it? This is the 1 out of 14 million. And I'm just, you can't keep saying that. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Do they establish it's his 3rd attempt? Because I can't remember.
I can't. I said that
Like, I remember
with
the
benefit
scene,
of the
but
doubt.
details.
Because I know that I'm pretty sure he sets it up as like this is going to take a while, and then he goes, "Holy shit," or something like that. Because it's like it works with the first few tries.
What does he learn from the conversation with Ant-Man and Black Widow and Captain America on the porch and everything?
That
What
allows
does he learn
him
from
to
that
do
that
all
he
the
didn't? Yeah, that he didn't know before.
that it's possible, I guess. Which is lame, right? Because it's like, really?
It is quick that he's like, oh, okay, it's possible.
And he just figures it out that quick. Oh, and the easy fix for this, in my opinion, would be to not have killed Hank Pym and to have him and Tony work together as a sort of like a nice little character moment for them both, but also explain how 2 of the smartest guys on this planet could come up with it. Would be like, oh, okay, I can get that.
Yeah.
But Tony just sort of does it. It's like, oh,
Yeah,
all right.
because Banner is working on his working on it elsewhere, and then Tony's working on it elsewhere. They're not together. They both kind of come to, some advancement in it sort of on their own.
Way too fast as far as I'm concerned, but there's a couple of those things in this movie. Dude, I have to set this up. Hulk dabbing.
Hulk
dab.
in general was
Right.
What the fuck were they doing with Hulk in this movie?
I feel like they kind of flubbed Hulk.
Like I'm okay with the concept of Hulk and Bruce Banner kind of becoming like one, but you gotta show that happen because I don't know how he went from Infinity War to whatever the fuck is going on in Endgame.
Hulk was an odd one.
Yeah.
He definitely was. He was like 90% Banner. 10%
Right.
Hulk?
Yeah, like the only part of him that was Hulk seemed to be the body.
Yeah. There was never any moments of rage where he had to stop himself. He's like, oh, he'll breathe in and out. Something that he does to control himself. But yeah, he's like 90% Bruce Banner, and I'm like, well, he looks green. He's big.
I feel like it's almost as if this movie wasn't written by the people who made Infinity War a little bit, because you're like, oh, they're clearly setting up that that Hulk is going to have some kind of identity crisis, and he needs to bring them together. And if it resulted in Professor Hulk, as it's known, I think, that'd be great. But we didn't get even a scene of like normal Banner and Hulk having some kind of back and forth, figuring out their I was like, why? That'd be so easy if you just had that.
That'd be like a scene you would have before the 5-year cut.
Yeah.
While everyone's getting over it, Banner loses it, and then the Hulk,
Like,
Banner's too
Banner could
sad
blame
about it.
Hulk. He could be like, if you'd worked with me, if you'd worked with us, we might have stopped Thanos, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And so Hulk and him could join finally. And maybe they did.
It's a shame we didn't see it because
it was cut.
I mean, there's that 5-year gap, which like it's not like it's impossible. We're not saying it couldn't happen. It's just it's sort of there, and the movie says just sort of accept it. And like, it would have been really nice.
I found like honestly, I found it jarring seeing it in the cinema. I was like, oh wow, okay, we're doing that. That's happening.
At least he dabs.
And yeah, they really dragged out the take a photo with Ant-Man joke for me. I was like, okay,
yeah, that went on.
I get it.
That was a bit much.
A lot of the comedy was a bit too much in this movie.
Yeah, I'll try and remember them as we go, but like there was a couple jokes that weren't working for me. While comparatively, I thought Infinity War was one of the funniest of the MCU films, while being one of the saddest sort of thing.
Well, yeah, they juggled them really well in Infinity War.
Yeah, and there's this thing about the MCU is terrible for ruining drama with comedy, and I don't think it applies to all of the MCU, but it certainly applies to a lot of them, or at least specific jokes. It's up and down sort of thing. So yeah, Hulk happened, and then there's Tony figures it out. Oh yeah, so the reconciling Tony and Cap, I wasn't happy with it.
Yeah, I didn't think you would be, given how much you love Civil War.
They have the scenes themselves, but I feel like they kind of wasted it. So my take is, Tony says, and I'm paraphrasing, something along the lines of like, it's not like being hateful is bad and I hate it. It's like kind of a funny line, like to imply that he's tired of being mad at Cap. And then they sort of move on. And I was like, oh god, that's it? I was like, you need to fucking talk about Tony's dad. You need to talk about how Bucky, like, just one of you apologizes, or they both do, or they recognize what happened, and then they move on. That's how you do that. You don't just go...
no real reconciliation between the two for what happened.
Yeah, and I was really good about that, because I love Civil War. So it's like, oh, okay. And then he's like, here's the shield, and he goes, I don't know if I should have it. And he's like, he made it for you. And I was like, did he? I thought he just made the shield. Because the shield was there in First Avenger, right? He picks it up. He's like, oh, I'll have this, I guess. And then Howard Stark is like, yeah. I don't know that he made it for him. But even then, I'm like, man, that's so thin. But the movie, like, it's got its own stuff to do, I guess. So I was just like, kind of. And there's the thing, like, it's not terrible. It's just, it could have been a lot more. And I figured they'd want to, because I thought Civil War was, like, their baby, the Russos. Like, because Winter Soldier is directly leading into that, and then Infinity War, blah, blah, blah. But,
And I still think Civil War is the best.
Oh, God, yeah. But it's tough. Your favorite is Iron Man, right?
Yes.
And Wolf,
Iron Man 1.
What is yours?
Probably Winter Soldier.
Mm-hmm. I find loads of people pick Winter Soldier.
It's really tough between Iron Man 1 and Winter Soldier, because they're both really good movies. Although I'd say objectively Iron Man 1 has less issues.
Then,
it's just that
I think Iron Man 1's structure. The only problem I have with Iron Man 1 is Obadiah goes insane at the end.
Yeah, the ending of Iron Man 1 kind of falls apart.
I wish he had a reason. So, and this easily brings us into they go meet Thor. So, Thor is now fat, drinks beer, and plays Fortnite.
Oh my god, the Fortnite shit.
So I just want to make it clear, like, as much as people like the memes, don't date your movie so hard with Fortnite. Like, wow.
Noob Master 69 called me a dick again. I cringed hearing that.
Yeah, that shit's funny maybe like 10 years ago for me. Like, I'd have been like, huh, that's in a movie.
Which I like, though.
Yeah, so did you guys love that every character in this movie basically shits on time travel movies as a whole?
Yeah,
You find that fun?
real
Wasn't
loved
a
it.
fan.
Yeah, let's make
Um,
fun of the time travel rules in other movies while make our rules no better. In some cases, much worse.
Basically.
because time travel is a weird one.
Yes.
It's a weird one. I mean, I guess it makes sense in universe that they'd know about all this stuff and that they would base what they think time travel is off of this stuff. But they hold these movies in high regard. The characters hold the movies, in high regard.
Yeah, no, it just, the awkward inference you can make is like, oh, so you guys think you're better than those films? You guys think you make more sense than those films?
I don't know. I don't think that's what the film's trying to say.
I think the film wants us to throw them out. Don't think about them. They're not what we're doing. That sort of thing. But it does come across that way to a couple people, I think. Because it was like, fuck you. Because he says Back to the Future is a bunch of bullshit. It's like, hey. What do you... is there any movie you guys think functions really well with time travel overall? Because the one I usually suggest is Primer.
I haven't seen Primer.
It's a we'll check that out. I think it's an indie movie, but it's a really the whole film is trying to explore competent, well-written time travel, so it's complicated, but you know.
I mean, generally, a lot of people say that Back to the Future is a really good one.
I think I need to watch it again. I've never really given it a huge amount of thought as to whether or not Back to the Future makes complete sense, because I always understood it pretty simply, right? Like it ripples through time.
They say like there's branches in time. Like when changes happen, it creates a new timeline.
Wait, you're talking about Avengers now, right?
Back to the Future.
Do they do that in Back to the Future? I thought it was just one timeline.
Yeah, with Biff. When he gets older, like that's its own timeline, and they can go back before that and head it off.
Yeah, but that is, from what I understand, it is one timeline. They go back, change something, and it changes the future forever. So they need to go back again and change that past back to make it so that their future comes true.
Time travel.
This is the thing. You start to be like, ugh, my brain. And I know that there's going to be a lot of people in chat who are going to be able to better look at it, better explain it, whatever. But we'll try our best to go through. I liked it when Don Cheadle talked about strangling a baby.
Someone said predestination.
Yeah,
I haven't seen that.
That's a freaky one.
What's the best time travel movie, EO?
Best time travel movie.
Or story in general, if you can think of anything.
Well, Steins Gate, of course, but
Fucking anime.
it's the best. That's the truth of it. Best movie though.
I know this might sound really weird, but I think Titanfall 2 did a good job with it.
I haven't played that.
Whereas, well, in that, there's a sequence where you essentially can hop between, it's almost like changing the level. So instead of it's almost like you're a stranger popping in and out of two different timelines, and only the stuff that you interact with changes, at least from your own perspective. But I don't know. It's time travel's weird.
Yeah, I enjoyed that level, but I don't really understand how the time travel in Titanfall 2 worked necessarily. As to Back to the Future, I'm with Mahler. I haven't seen it in a long time, so I don't remember if it works as well as I think it does or not.
I think one of the reasons is because Titanfall, I don't think they really explore potential timeline changes. They just stay with the one that they're on. So that makes it seem really simple. But then your characters kind of replaced the guy whose memories you're going through. Like he finds that dude stuck in the ceiling, and then he kind of takes over doing the same shit he did back in the past. It's kind of weird. It was a fun level, but I genuinely, I'd probably have to play the campaign again. It's been like a year or so. But it's been a while for me. Yeah.
The rule of thumb is like, don't write time travel unless you're like that's your focal point. You're like, I want to write about time travel. It's like, oh, that makes sense.
Don't
then.
write off time travel. It's a big deal because really, I mean, that's like the biggest you can get.
Yeah, because
you can't really one up time travel. It's like the big. That was one of the reasons I hated that fucking Harry Potter book so much because J.K. is just so flippant about time travel. Like, no, this is the ultimate weapon, and there is nothing greater.
Yeah, there is nothing.
And she's
better.
like, oh yeah, Hermione uses it to get to different classes. Like, this is fucking time travel. This is insane. Like, no, it's this girl uses it to get to classes.
Well, there's people, I believe we read a comment on one of the other EFAPs that apparently that's very defensible. I wouldn't know because I haven't explored it, but yeah, just avoid bringing it in because, you know, even if your time travel makes complete sense, let's just say it does, a majority of your audience is going to be like, that didn't make sense. Because it's so hard to follow sometimes when you have like a really complicated time travel system. Like Primer as a film is practically an invitation to those who want to explore how time travel can be logically consistently written, I think. So
well, the issue is that when it comes to time travel, we don't like actually have time travel in this sense in our world, so we don't really have like set rules for it that we can compare to reality. So it's almost like a bunch of hypotheticals and theoreticals that different people have, you know, based on different interpretations of what it might be, and those all clash, which is why setting up the rules for your time travel is so important.
Because like the way, so the standard paradox for the standard time travel model is the grandfather one, right? Like the idea that you have a goal, you complete it, therefore that goal never needed to be complete, therefore you don't go, but then therefore the goal happens, blah 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 blah. The way Back to the Future gets around it is to say that changes in the past don't catch up with the future straight away. So you have the time to be able to, like that. Again, I need to watch it again before I can say.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you have the Tesseract in a box or whatever, and it's just sitting there and nobody interacts with it, it doesn't make any difference if it disappears from the box like Schrodinger's Tesseract, and then it's back in the box before somebody else interacts with it in any way.
Also, some people in chat are suggesting time travel is potentially possible already, depending on perspective. Like, I believe part of traveling at light speed slows down either the viewer or the subject or the object,
yeah, but
right?
we mean in the terms of movies, like going back and interacting with previous events.
The interesting thing is that they're not just traveling by time in the movie, they're traveling by space as well. They're teleporting, arguably. Arguably. And this is the thing, it starts to get like, ooh, careful, because now we need to like figure out exactly what the fuck they even say. For instance, Hulk says that that model of time travel is bullshit, and he says it's because if you travel to the past, that past becomes your future, and your former present becomes the past, which can't now be changed by your new future. Does that make sense? Fringy had so many problems with this. I was already lost. I was like, wait, say that again? That doesn't...
I'm curious, because I'm not familiar with Steins Gate. What are the general rules of the time travel in there, Yar?
Okay, well, there are parallel world lines, or timelines, but they call them world lines. And if you change one world line, you're basically not changing that world line. You're skipping over to another one where that change happened. So you can't have any paradoxes that way. The one like restraining factor is that there's this thing called attractor fields, where world lines are like separated into bunches that all have a certain convergence point that cannot be changed. It's complicated. You'd have to watch it. I mean, it's hard to...
I think that's just what we've learned easily from this. Is like, if ever you had a model that does function for time travel, it's hard to break down and understand perfectly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just going to say it again, because there's a lot of people in chat who said, what the fuck? So, he says, if you travel to the past... I'll just try and go through it. If you travel to the past, meaning they go to 2012, for example, he says that past becomes your future. I assume he's saying that if you were to stay there, that would now be your timeline. I don't really know because I don't know what he's referencing as the past and the future in this complicated sentence.
I wonder if he would replace, like you would replace your old version from that past, or if there would just be two.
Because if you travel to the past, that past becomes your future, and your former present becomes the past, which can't now be changed by your new future. I assume...
Well, we know from the movie you don't replace your old self.
No.
But I didn't know if it was like a Back to the Future kind of thing where you steadily like fade away depending on what you do.
Well, so going from what he says, right, so if you've got my stream up, I'm going to show you my amazing picture so we can try and discuss this, and I will try and look at chat as best I can to catch anybody who's making explanations that
I'm monitoring it, so
make it make sense. So, as you can see from my incredible drawing, timeline 1, and don't worry, we'll try and pick this apart. Timeline 1 is the movie. Now, just before the end of Timeline 1, there's 3 travels to different, I assume, judging from Oracle Lady, Ancient One, whatever, you go to the past and you do a thing that never happened in that past. You have thus created, you've just split off a new reality, a new timeline. He says to her that we can fix your reality. That's what he says to her in the film. And I was like, your reality, as in 2 separate realities, as in, are we talking parallel universes here?
Like it would create a new, basically,
Universe.
timeline for all the things that they interacted with, but they would go back to their own.
You're right. So according to the movie, we have 3 teams. They go to 2, 3, and 4. Iron Man and Ant-Man fuck up to the point where Cap and Iron Man have to go to Universe 5. And then they collect all the stones and bring them back to Universe 1. There's other things to talk about. We're just going to run with this for a second. And then the film ends with Cap going to replace all of them, and he ends up on a bench as an old man. Now, a lot of people are simultaneously upset and happy with it because we're not sure if it makes any sense. Now, the explanation I've heard is that it turns out we were watching Universe 1 when there is in fact a Universe 0, which was the actual original MCU timeline, where Cap did all of this and then traveled to Universe 1, had sat on the bench, because and he was secretly married to Peggy Carter, and he did all of his stuff, and he just probably changed his name and stayed under the radar while our Cap was doing anything.
Yeah, that's what I imagine he would have to do, because he would know that he's out there frozen and they'll find him. So he can't disrupt that.
So, before we can start picking everything apart, because that's totally possible, any thoughts, just off the top of your head from looking at this model?
Fuck it.
Weird line from Ancient One. She says something along the lines of like, when you knock out a stone, she picks out the time stone specifically, but she says a stone, then you create a darker timeline, as if to imply you don't get a new timeline unless you do something with stones specifically. And a lot of people have taken that as word of God sort of thing to do with the script. I don't think you could say that's true, because what if I went back and killed Tony Stark? I didn't touch any stones, I just killed Tony Stark. Wouldn't that have to change the timeline and thus create a new timeline? Like, or would it erase timeline 1 because he's no longer alive to be in the end of timeline 1, so that none of that can even happen anymore?
Why do they even need all of the Infinity Stones when they can just, once they get the Time Stone, like, what are the Time Stone's powers exactly?
That's one of the issues I have, is they never actually use any of the powers of any individual stone in the movie.
Yeah, like, you have the Time Stone that controls time.
Oh, do you
You're
mean like
golden now.
They should just fly out to outside of Earth with the time stone and then just rewind the thing by 5 years?
Well, what's the freaking rules of the Time Stone?
No idea. It's part
Because
of
if
what
you
broke Doctor
get- it's not-
Strange.
Because to me, I'd be like, we have to do time travel. It's like, all right, well, let's go get the Time Stone. That's the one that matters. And the rest, well, we have the Time Stone, so we have like an infinite, just like in Doctor Strange, we have an infinite amount of attempts to get them. Which means if it's even possible that we can get them, then it's inevitable that we'll get them. Time Stone.
Not just that, but I don't know about you guys, but if you were with the Avengers and you're like, all right, we need all 6 stones, Where were they at what times? What are the easiest ways to sort of grab them? I would have been like, ooh, I know one. If I was Iron Man, I'd be like, there was this purple dude who had like this gauntlet with most of them in it already. If we go back to when you guys subdued him and literally just fucking knock out Peter Quill, we can get the gauntlet off him and tell the Avengers, well, we could just kill him there and then because he was knocked out by Thingy, so we can literally chop off his head with Thor because we know that's possible. Done and done. That universe doesn't even have a Thanos now, and then we'd be like, hey, universe, we just saved your ass hardcore. Do you mind if we take the other stones, and we'll come right back, but we need to save our universe too.
We need to save him. Yeah, that would have been
time
travel.
That would have ruined the films. We can't do that. Also, oh damn, we can't do much time traveling. We're restricted because we have such limited Pym particles. Like, oh, well, I guess they can't get any more. Oh no, they can. They just need to travel back in time. It's like, why didn't you do that first?
Also, how come he only grabbed like 4 of them instead of all of them?
Yeah, that was weird.
I was like, no, all of them. They're all extremely valuable. Get all of them.
Fucking Hag Pym can make more. Just take them all.
Yes. It's like, we need these.
Well, he could literally put them in his thing and go back just before Cap entered that room, and then they'll all be there again and grab them all and see that other Cap and be like, fuck you. Just leave again.
Well, that's the thing. It's the whole, well,
you
we
get
can have
infinite
anything
Pym particles.
Yeah, you just keep going back 5 minutes before you grabbed them the first time.
And that makes it so
now you're making things really awkward for a bunch of other timelines in which you did this, but
yeah, which is another issue, is do they care about the repercussions in the other timelines? How did Cap fix what they did with Loki? I'm assuming he didn't. How did Cap... You know what? They took the spear, the staff, the whatever it is, the Loki spear. They took the stone out of that. Did they put it back in before they replaced it? Because Age of Ultron is a very different movie if you don't even have that scepter as it is.
Mm-hmm.
No mind controlling as well for Age of Ultron, which happens to the girl, the doctor girl. She allows Ultron to do everything she needs her to do. So, like, yeah, again, like, this is like, uh-oh.
Time travel is really weird.
And
this is why it's messy. There's no... Yeah. It's the big thing. It should not be treated lightly.
And the other, there's a few more. So, like, why did they choose... Do you guys remember Guardians of the Galaxy? So, Quill gets the, Power Stone, and he's, like, immediately ambushed by Ronan's men. Where were they in this movie? They don't turn up.
They don't. Maybe...
I was like,
Well, I guess compared to when they punch him...
Well, if you remember, what's her name? Gamora, Nebula got knocked out. She was on the floor for a while. There's no way they wouldn't have turned up.
Well,
speaking of Nebula, how is it that she can be connected to the other Nebula from the other timeline?
Oh, it's explained in Guardians. It's called convenience.
I don't know. I'm okay with that part.
I'm not. I would have been.
I mean,
if not for the fact that she should be fully aware of that, and she jeopardizes the whole mission by going, just let War Machine go without you.
I mean, I could understand like her not foreseeing that, but wouldn't she start having the same? Because the past Nebula started having some fuckery going on in her head, but present Nebula didn't.
Well, present Nebula, so you're nearly there. She does eventually. My problem is, why doesn't it happen at the same time?
Well, isn't it because don't they have the Thanos' machine that reads the memories?
No, it first happens to her when she's just talking to Thanos, remember? And Thanos is like, what the fuck is this? And she displays all that stuff, and it's like, shouldn't our one be like, blah, blah, blah. Also, she has that issue the second after War Machine leaves.
Very, very, very convenient timing.
And
not even really the second after. It's like the second that they're both pressing the button, or about to press the button.
And you might be like, well, yeah, you know, she's just unlucky. And it's like, why doesn't she just... She's like, oh no, Thanos knows. And it's like, okay, so what's the problem? And he'd be like, oh, it's going to change how Thanos behaves in this universe, I guess. Like, okay, that's it. Tough shit. You're going to have to move on because you need to go back now. Just activate a little thing and go back. Instead, she decides to get herself captured and provide them with a Pym particle. Like, okay. That's interesting. Like, why didn't... You know when she's getting sucked up into the ship? I was like, use your thing. You use the thing. Go back. Use the thing. What are you doing? And she just lets herself get captured. I don't know why.
Yeah, that was dumb.
The Thor's timeline where he just goes and gets the juice, that worked out just fine mostly, because the logic of the film, I'm assuming, I could be getting this wrong, is that if you return the stone, the timeline goes back to normal, as it was always supposed to.
Yeah, I'm okay with that, given a certain amount of margin of error. Like, the Tesseract in and out of the box, if no one's there to interact with it, or if nobody's actions are influenced by it, then I could see how the timeline would quote unquote mend itself. But that's one of those, every situation is kind of its own deal. It's very contextual, whether it would or not. I mean, it depends on how big the change is.
And yeah, like, if there's something we're missing, by the way, time travel wise, it could very well be the case. Like, are you guys, all three of you, are you following along, or is there anything that you think we've missed here? Because I thought this is pretty much how they do it in the film.
Yeah, I'm a little confused. So what exactly leads you to believe that there are actually multiple timelines?
Ancient One saying that when you take a stone out, it makes a new timeline, and then they have to go back to that specific timeline and repair it, quote unquote.
Right, but before, you're also kind of assuming there's multiple timelines before they remove the stones.
Oh, it's as a result of moving the stones that the timelines are made, I'm assuming. So I just put them there ahead of time.
But the whole deal is that they put them back so that there aren't multiple timelines.
Yes. So technically, as far as I'm aware... Well, so this is the other problem. If we go by Ancient One's logic, then you only get a new timeline when you take a stone out. But my question is, what is happening then if Thanos is dead in Timeline 4? So doesn't that change everything? The Timeline 4 to the point where it can't be Timeline 1?
Yeah, it would.
It has to be a new one, right?
Because like the first thing that somebody mentions is let's go back in time and kill baby Thanos.
Right.
And then Banner says that
wouldn't change anything for us. It would for their timeline though, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
I'd be like,
that sounds logical, but I don't think the movie ever really puts that forward.
Well, I think they don't. I think they don't do it because Banner says that it wouldn't change it for us. And depending on how many timelines there were, there's potentially, I guess by the Avengers rules, there's only a timeline for how many stones there could be. Is that what the Ancient One is kind of leading at here?
Also, the reason
is it just the time stone, because she picks that one out specifically?
To clarify for chat, the reason I've drawn it this way is because it's much easier to understand than if I drew a line and then lines going back to them and then splitting off depending on the events that happen. But yeah, these timelines only exist when they fucked them up. As far as I can tell from the movie, they slot back in with timeline 1 if everything goes to plan. But then you have the problem of, well, hey, so moving a stone makes a new timeline. Okay. Killing Tony Stark or Thanos or someone like that, surely that makes 2 timelines. Go, okay. What about giving Tony Stark cardiac arrest? That would probably change at least a few things, right? And then you get to the point of, what about opening a door on some street where it wasn't before? You know, the whole butterfly effect idea.
And that's what are there an infinite amount of timelines for every potential change that could ever possibly happen?
Yeah. So
yeah, I'd have to assume so.
Yeah,
like the infinite timeline thing is one of the it's why BioShock Infinite doesn't make sense.
Oh, fuck that game. So yeah, I don't get it. Is the short version of this, and from what I can tell, if I was to be getting it, is that it doesn't really make sense. Is everybody on that page?
I'm fine with at
Right,
this
there we go.
point with me in time travel, it's almost like give me a few rules to work by that are big ones, and then it might be the best you could do, because there's always going to be an element of we couldn't possibly know or what really happens in some scenario.
Again, so to clarify, Super APM said that's not what she suggested. Obviously, changing anything, regardless of the stones, will split the time stream. It's just that if they took the stones, then her timeline would be left defenseless. Yeah, check online. Loads of people interpret it as there's only a new timeline if you knock out a stone, which I think makes no sense. So if we treat it as there's always a new timeline, even if you change relatively small things, the film doesn't work either way. Kind of the point. But I agree that you can't take the time stone away from the Sorcerer Supreme before they fight Dormammu. That's not going to fucking work, is it?
Yeah, but I think that I do think, from what someone in chat said, it's fair to say that they did create a lot of new timelines in this movie.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Which is almost like, it makes you think, are they going to use one of those potential timelines to be the timeline that the MCU carries on in?
Mm-hmm.
You don't know. That's the thing. I mean, it's always like their back door is there. One of those timelines is the one that, because it's those characters doing those things and a lot of this stuff happens, it's a way for them to legitimately, by their own rules at least, or what they present as their own rules, offer a potential continuity that doesn't get mixed up too much in the events of Infinity War and Endgame.
You got
But
the line you don't understand
okay.
from the movie probably means you can't travel to your own past, only to a parallel timeline. Again, I don't really know. I'm not really sure. I think there's a lot of people trying to figure out exactly what happens in the film based on what people say and what we see. And this encompasses what you would call the second act, by the way, and a lot of people are very split on whether or not the second act was any good. What are you guys' take on it as a whole? Basically, all the time traveling.
It really fucked up the movie for me.
Yeah, same.
It didn't fuck up the movie for me, but I don't know. I mean, I'm in the middle on it. I mean, time travel is just, it's weird. It's a weird one.
You really have to plan that out well beforehand. Yeah. You can't just introduce it at the fucking very end of the series.
And then I don't think anyone can deny, so there's going to be discussions and arguments about whether or not the time travel makes sense, but I don't think anyone's denying their choices where they go back in time is stupid compared to what they could have done.
Someone in chat is saying, am I missing something? What about Loki's scepter not working in the Avengers on Tony Stark and Loki being surprised by it?
What do you mean?
I'm just reading the comment.
Plus, yeah, because Tony's like got a metal thing on it that's not connected to his skin, I guess. That's Avengers. That's not even this movie.
I don't know, but I think that's enough. I think that's enough time travel talk.
Yeah,
I don't know if there's gonna be much resolution to.
I liked seeing all the things in a very superficial way, but I knew watching it, I was like, oh man, this is going to be talked about for so long, for how, like, this is fucked up, or this is complete sensical writing. I've already seen passionate takes on every side of the argument. There's people out there who are like, this is the best time travel movie that exists, and then there's people who are like, this has ruined the MCU. So if ever I was to make a video about that specifically, I'd have to fucking look into this for ages, because it's like so many factors and assumptions you have to make. I like that they showed the Ancient One actually attacking shit during the 2012, because I was actually wondering where the fuck they were during that. So that was neat. Oh, that's something. So why didn't the Ancient One know that Hulk was gonna walk up to her if she's looked into the future a billion times in her reality, if you know what I mean?
I didn't even think about it.
And some people have said, like, well, because that wasn't going to happen until he chose to do it. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, this is a problem with time travel. It's like,
well, I guess when it comes to, maybe it's because she could only see so far, and Hulk the point where Hulk comes back, that decision was made in a point that she couldn't see past.
Because like we all agree, right? She's surprised to see him or surprised to deal with him. Like it's not like
surprised to learn about Doctor Strange.
Well, it's,
No, she knew about Doctor Strange.
No, yeah.
She just
The
was
decision
surprised
he
to
made.
find. Yeah, that was it.
he has to argue why she has to give him the stone. So she clearly didn't know this was going to happen. Because she wouldn't have done that. She'd have been like, "Here's the." That would actually have been pretty cool if he turned up and she said, "Here's the stone." He's like, "That easy, huh?" And she goes, "Just take it." It would have been like, "Oh, she's aware of what's going to happen, I guess." But someone said she couldn't see past her death. This is 5 years before she died. Like,
Well, I'm saying that the point where Hulk decides to use time travel to come back was a decision that was made after the point where she could see, so she wouldn't see the repercussion of that decision being made.
Which makes sense why she wouldn't know that Doctor Strange would give the stone to Thanos, because that's after she
that's
dies.
fine with me because that happens in a different reality. From what I understand.
Time travel.
But why can't she see in her own reality that the Hulk came in?
Because I don't think that was even a potential reality until Hulk makes that decision. And the setup for basically the prerequisite for that reality didn't happen until a point after she could see. So all of the potential realities that existed yet, because not everything's possible.
Right, so like the time stone is
possible
unaware
due to
of this even being a thing, in a way? Like
maybe the time stone only, and we're getting a little bit hypothetical here because the extent of the time stone's capabilities aren't exactly known in full. But
then what about
it's possible?
What about the idea that she could then, as he tells her all this, she could be like, "Oh, give me a sec," and she looks into the future again just to see how everything turns out? Or would that still not make sense? I guess
if the Hulk is basically the prerequisite requirement that allows for the current reality to even become possible at all.
Mm-hmm.
So that means that when the Hulk does come back, this new that basically branches the timeline off where she is, and that makes the time stone at least aware that there's a new reality now, or a new timeline that it can see because of it. Maybe, I don't know. I'm getting hypothetical, but
no, I think
to.
we'll only be hypothetical. For, like, the things we say in this stream are probably going to be outdated even by tomorrow. Like, who knows? Because this is a really complicated discussion. I just saw someone in chat say that
Stone doesn't see different branches.
Someone in the chat said that Infinity War and Endgame take place after Doctor Strange, which is after her death, and she can't see past her death. It's like, but I'm talking about from her perspective in her reality. And
yeah,
I guess
that's why I'm thinking the time stone only allows her to see the branches that exist that have the potential to exist, because during her lifetime, the potential branch where the Hulk comes back, it doesn't exist yet. It's not even possible yet. It will only become possible after the Hulk, initiates that event.
Also, for clarifications for people who are saying she didn't say that only a stone would do it, I'm pretty sure she, like, word for word says, if you take a stone, it'll create a branch that may benefit your reality. Like, your reality will be benefited, but ours will not, or something like that. Like, she does make it sound like what I was saying, but again, I don't know for sure.
Someone pointed out Doctor Strange does see past his death.
That's
so that is an issue.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure.
Time travel.
I don't even really understand. You know, him looking into the future, like, what if he sees the 14 million potentials, he sees the one that works? How can he do anything to make that reality work outside of signaling to Tony Stark that he needs to kill himself? Do you know what I mean? Like, what else could Doctor Strange even affect that he wasn't going to pretty much do anyway? Like, bringing people into the fight. You know? Like, it wasn't like a...
Maybe that one... Well, of all the realities that didn't work, of all the potentials that didn't work...
We saw the one that did?
Who knows how far... Well, who knows how far along those potentials got before they failed? Like, how many of those potentials involve the events of Endgame playing out as they did until something didn't happen?
Is that the point, that we just, all that happened was we saw the one that won, but there was shit tons that didn't?
I assume so.
Yeah,
I
okay.
I thought that's what we're supposed to be gleaned by.
I'll sell for that for now, because I mean, fucking hell, this is